If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
All right, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I want to welcome our brand new sponsor, PureSoapFlakes.com. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils in northern Minnesota. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrances, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin. You want to put your baby's onesies and those little outfits there in this Pure Soap Flakes. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading dryers. Machines, sorry. Order today at PureSoapFlakes.com, greenhome.com, and Amazon.com. Or give them a call, 218-568-2525. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Hey, good old CartKing.com. Have you ever thought about going into the cart or kiosk business? Maybe the current business you have right now wants to add additional point-of-sale locations across the country. Maybe the facility you manage wants to add additional revenue by adding coffee, food, carts, or retail services. CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com has been for 20 years working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. Those large heated ones you see outside by the baseball field there, selling those fireworks and stuff like that, to the smaller coffee carts, kiosks, flower carts, souvenir carts you see inside hospitals and lobbies, airports. Cart-King.com, 877-986-7771. You go to the website, Cart-King.com. You pick out a design that applies to you. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and they'll ship it worldwide. 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. 3. Okay, our next guest is Richard Rashke. He's where is it? I got it right here. He is an American journalist, teacher, author, and he's written nonfiction books as well as plays and screenplays. He's well known for Escape from Sobibor, which is a book about the Nazi Holocaust and this escape of these prisoners over there. But today we're going to be talking about Karen Silkwood, the killing of Karen Silkwood, the story behind the Kerr-McGee Plutonium case. Mr. Rashke, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much. Tell us about yourself. Who is Richard Rashke?
Well, I'm a trained journalist, and I consider myself in a category by itself, a historical journalist, which means I am a storyteller. That's the journalism part. And I do stories of the past, and I use the same tools that historians use to uncover the facts and evaluate the facts And as a journalist, I rely heavily on person-to-person interviews when possible.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so today we're talking about the killing of Karen Silkwood, the story behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case. So give us an idea. Who is Karen Silkwood?
Karen Silkwood was a whistleblower, and she blew the whistle on the nuclear industry in the 1970s. Very important for you and the listeners to remember that when we talk about this case, we are in the middle of the Cold War, and that nuclear was a buzzword, and that anything that had to do with nuclear was incredibly important because our whole weapons system was based on nuclear, and we were scared to death of nuclear terrorists who might get our plutonium and enriched uranium and use it against America. So that she blew the whistle on the nuclear industry. In so doing, she did the impossible. She's a lone woman, single, divorced, under 100 pounds, and she took on the Atomic Energy Commission, the White House, the State Department, the FBI, the CIA, the National Intelligence Agency, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, and the Oklahoma City Police. She took them all on when she blew the whistle.
And exactly. By the way, too, if you look at pictures of her back then in 1974, she looks like Mary Tyler Moore. You know, she looks like a.
Yeah. Well, the picture that you generally see is her graduation picture from high school. And so when she started to blow the whistle as a member of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union, she looked slightly different. She put on a little weight and, didn't have the long black hair. Yeah, but she was a pixie.
Yeah. And what information was she revealing? What whistle did she blow?
Okay, what she was concerned about, she was not a union member when she went to work at the Kerr-McGee, that's the Kerr-McGee Nuclear Corporation's plant in Crescent, Oklahoma, a little town on the Cimarron River in 1972. She was looking for work, newly divorced, looking for a well-paying job. She got a job as a lab analyst inside the company, and she was not a member of the union. But then she looked around, and she saw all of the safety violations going on in the plant. She knew something about plutonium that most workers didn't, how deadly it was. She saw spills and contaminations and lack of concern for health and safety. And so when the union went on strike, she joined the union and she went out and picketed with everybody else. And when the strike was over and the workers went back to work, she was elected, she didn't campaign, but she was elected as a union official representing the workers in that Cimarron plant. And the officials of the union in Washington called her and her two other union representatives, Jack Tice and Jerry Brewer, called them to Washington, D.C., to meet with the top level of the Atomic Energy Commission, AEC, in suburban Washington in Bethesda. And prior to that, she had a warning, you're going to do this in September, get busy. She took copious notes on every code violation she saw and every contamination she saw, and she would date it in her spiral notebook and collected all this information and went into the lion's den, into the jaws of the AEC, and accused it of being corrupt, of being deceitful, of being negligent, and of basically violating all the rights of the health and safety of the workers. And, of course, that did not endear her to the AEC, as you can imagine. So she came there with 39 specific things that she saw at the plant. We don't have time to go in all of them, but I'll mention two, and you'll get the point immediately. There were alarms in every room, and there were filters in every room to in case there was a leakage of plutonium dust in the air or plutonium mist in the air. The monitor would read it, and an alarm would go off. And what she told the AEC is, number one, they would turn the alarm off, period, so that workers wouldn't be disturbed once the room was contaminated, and they were forced to work in the contaminated room for up to 10 straight hours. And sometimes the alarm went off, but there were no filters, which means that the air was never cleaned. And sometimes the alarm would go off, and some manager at the plant would say, hey, folks, false alarm, don't worry about it, go back to work. And they'd go back to work and keep the alarm off. And the second one dealt with respirators. When you're working in high areas that were potentially dangerous, you were required to wear a respirator. And the respirators didn't fit properly, which means that air could get in. The filters were either missing or were so clogged they were useless. And against all safety regulations and norms, workers were forced to work with masks on, respirators on, for up to 10 hours a day, which increased fatigue, and fatigue encouraged making mistakes, and making mistakes with nuclear material like plutonium and highly enriched uranium is not advisable, Ed. I mean, come on. So before she left to come back to Washington, she told the two union officials that she was dealing with from the legislative office that she uncovered something that she found incredibly disturbing. They were making fuel rods, which would go into a high flux test nuclear reactor. And these fuel rods were put into water to keep cool. And they had to be precise. They could not leak, because if they leaked, then the water would overheat. And if they overheated the water, there'd be a nuclear meltdown like we had at 3 Mile Island. Second, the plutonium pellets inside had to be the right size. They couldn't be too small, because then the reactor wouldn't work. Or if they were too big, once again, the thing would overheat. Kerr and Silkwood found out they were cheating, that the fuel rods were not sealed properly, that the plutonium pellets weren't the right size, and that one of the lab workers used a felt-tip pen to go over negatives that showed defects, and he would cover the defects with black ink. And so Karen Silkwood was concerned not just for herself. These fuel rods were going up to Hanford, Washington, and she's in the middle of Oklahoma. So she's worried about the folks downwind in the state of Washington. And nobody knows, or nobody knew at that time, what it would take by way of leaky fuel rods to cause a nuclear meltdown and a major explosion. So she went back home to the plant, and the union officials told her, go underground and don't tell us what you saw. Collect what you saw. Get pictures. Get negatives. Get the paperwork that shows that they were cheating on how many of these things were defective and how many passed inspection and shouldn't have passed inspection. All of that data. Collect it. And don't let anybody at the plant know you're doing it, because Karen Silkwood, we're lining you up with one of the best reporters at the New York Times. And he's going to come down to Oklahoma City when you're ready. And you're to give him all this information, and he doesn't want to interview you. He wants the data. Make sure you got it all. She agreed, and she came home.
Well, let me ask you a question now. What would motivate Kerr-McGee to run such a sloppy shop? If they must be making a ton of money, and if they have radiation all over the place, it's going to render the plant useless. What was going on with that? Well, who's thinking there?
Okay, first thing is they had a contract. And the contract was to produce X number of fuel rods, something like 10,000 fuel rods. And it had to be done in a certain period of time. It's like when you get a contractor to come to do your kitchen. You don't say to him, well, listen, whenever you can finish it, that's fine. You sign a contract, and he says, I guarantee I'll be finished in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. And you hold him to that. And so Kerr-McGee had a airtight contract, and it wanted to meet the deadlines, and to meet the deadlines, it couldn't afford to make too many mistakes. So when mistakes were made, it looked the other way. And it was same with the AEC, which was responsible for monitoring the contract, the health and the safety of the workers. And its Chicago office, which covered Oklahoma, was corrupt. We don't have time, but I'll give you one example. Kerr-McGee alerted them, the AEC inspectors from Chicago told Kerr-McGee, our secret, unannounced inspection visit will be next Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. So Kerr-McGee knew when they were coming and had ample opportunity, days, to clean the place up, make everything look, as they say, to polish the silver, everything look nice, and warned all the workers, don't dare speak or offer any information to the AEC inspectors. And so there was this kind of collusion that we've got to get this stuff done, and if it's sloppy, it's sloppy. If young men in their 20s and young women in their 20s are contaminated with plutonium, so be it. There's a certain type of callousness there.
And what about the workers? Did they come down with cancers and all kinds of problems?
Well, here's the deceit. In collusion with the AEC, Kerr-McGee never told the workers that plutonium causes cancer, or that highly enriched uranium getting into your system will give you bone cancer, lung cancer, liver cancer, stomach cancer, especially lung cancer if you breathe it, and the bone cancer is especially vicious. Never said a word. And the instruction manuals that they use to give the workers orientation for 2 or 3 days never said the word cancer. So people were being contaminated and slightly sloppy because they didn't understand the risks of being contaminated. So that was part of the deceit. And, of course, they got caught on this. There was a negligence trial in 1979, which I attended in Oklahoma City. It was a civil suit filed by Silkwood's family after her death, alleging that Kerr-McGee was negligent in taking care of the plutonium that contaminated Karen Silkwood and others. And a big argument that they came up with was they were never told that that this stuff causes cancer, and the physicians who testified under oath said, incredible, it's a known fact, and they hid this from these kids. And they left after the plant closed down with in some cases, their bodies filled with radiation, never even knew it. And nobody ever really went back and did a study of all the workers at Kerr-McGee from 72 to 74 to find out how many died of cancer and compare that to national statistics. Nobody wanted to put a couple 100,000 into that. Karen Silkwood herself was so badly contaminated that one of the medical doctors, Dr. Goffman, who testified at the trial, said, and I quote, "She was married to cancer."
Oh, my God. I guess
That's why I call my book The Killing of Karen Silkwood. For one sense, she was killed in a car accident, and the other one is she was also slowly dying of cancer, and in 25 years, they estimated she would have been dead.
But like the whole town, I get the fact that it's a small town in Oklahoma. Okay, I never even heard of this place, Cimarron. So, but the whole town, was that uneducated about the
Oh, listen, they had two plants there.
Okay.
And the second plant was a uranium plant, where they highly enriched uranium. And the fuel rods contained a combination of plutonium and uranium for the nuclear reactors. Look at the plutonium plant. They had the stuff, piles of plutonium sitting open on tables.
Oh, my God.
Guys took pellets home and gave them to their kids to play with. There was, as one Kerr-McGee manager put it, the place was a nuclear pig pen. You go into the refectory to have your lunch. There's uranium dust on the table. You're allowed to smoke in there, so now you're smoking, and every time you take that deep inhale, you're inhaling uranium dust. And their shoes, weren't required to wear booties, so they got plutonium on their shoes, smudges of black and green, and they would take those shoes home with them. I mean, it was, the conditions were absolutely careless and incredible. As one doctor who did the study of the plant said, this whole operation was totally and completely negligent and cruel from top to bottom. Now, that's what she was up against, and that's why she was blowing the whistle. She was also concerned about the Cimarron River. You know, it's always famous in the Western movies, or he's in a movie called Cimarron, you know. And Kerr-McGee was on a little bluff above the river. And outside in the back, they had the usual sledge pond with contaminated liquid from the plant. And the water table was right under there, and that stuff was seeping into the Cimarron River. So how do we know that? Because one night, there may have been more than one night that I know of, there was a huge fish kill. And Kerr-McGee workers, managers, were called in to put on moon suits so they wouldn't get contaminated. Go down to the river, scoop up all the dead fish, and bury them where? In the land above the Cimarron River. I mean, it was terrible. And she was concerned about that. And that's why she agreed to go to blow the whistle and deliver documents, just like Daniel Ellsberg did about Vietnam War documents, just like, who else am I going to think of here? Edward Snowden did about NSA illegally spying on Americans. And she got this stuff. Some of it was classified information. The documents she may have had about 40 pounds of plutonium missing from the plant. And, 10 pounds is enough to make a bomb much greater than what we dropped on the Japanese in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, because we hear now about this Russian collusion, they interfering in the election, spies everywhere running around all over D.C. Isn't it possible that those 40 pounds of uranium, they just went up to some workers?
No, plutonium.
Plutonium, yeah, I'm sorry, plutonium.
Yeah.
But isn't it possible that they were approached by some agents and said, hey, can you sell us some of those pellets you're fooling around with over there?
Well, this has always been a concern.
Yeah.
And that's why it was the policy of the CIA By the way, Ed, everything I'm saying is factual, and if I say something that's an opinion or conclusion, I will tell you that it's my opinion or this is my conclusion. Everything else I say is factual.
Excellent.
It was a policy of the CIA back then to have a CIA agent undercover in every major nuclear facility in the country. And they usually got a job in the security force, and they more than likely it was with permission of the AEC that they would do that. And their job was to make sure that people who worked there, the workers, would not smuggle out any kind of plutonium and try and give it to or sell it to terrorists of some kind. But they had a second job, and that second job was to steal plutonium.
Yeah.
Now, in the Kerr-McGee plant, with 40 pounds of plutonium missing, by the way, we know it was missing because, one, all the workers knew it was missing. Every time the AEC said we're coming, the plant managers would scramble around trying to find any bit of missing plutonium and put it in a proper pile so it would look like they were doing their jobs. And secondly, a manager by the name of James B. Smith, who was a good guy and concerned about the health and safety of the workers, testified during that negligence trial I just told you about a few minutes ago in '79 in Oklahoma City. He said before the plant closed down, he said, I reviewed the inventory of plutonium, and every month there was a little more missing. And he said, when the plant closed down, he said, I flushed out all the pipes they had. They would move plutonium around mixed with uranium in a liquid form first before they solidified it in pipes, a couple miles of sealing pipes, which frequently leaked. And so he flushed out all these pipes, measured the plutonium that was in the water. He did the same, washed down all the walls, and measured the plutonium or radiation in the water, and concluded that more than 30 pounds of plutonium were still missing after he cleaned the plant up. He testified under oath. And, of course, the AEC has always denied that there was no plutonium missing. Kerr-McGee always denied there was none missing. And I happened to get, under Freedom of Information, a stack of papers from the former AEC, now the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and sub-offices. And tucked in there was a letter from the FBI saying, by the way, tell us, was there any plutonium missing at the plant? And the answer came back, and I have a copy of it, from the AEC, former AEC, now Nuclear Regulatory, yes, at least 16 pounds, which may have been an under. So, yes, it was missing. Now, here's what happened to it. I know because I have a source, and his name is Echo in my book, highly placed. And I can say that I wrote this book in 1981, and from 81 until today, there isn't anything that Echo told me that has proven to be incorrect. Now, Echo has since died, and I am hoping that his widow will give me permission to reveal his name, in which case I will do so in any revisions that I do to my book. But I will not release his name without her permission, because she might feel that she will suffer some kind of blowback or some kind of harassment on her and her children if I reveal his name. So anyway...
Wait. Why don't we take a commercial break here, and when we get back, you can tell us what you think happened, what Echo told you happened to this missing plutonium, correct?
I'll be happy to do so.
Let's do that. Thank you so much. This is great information. We're with Richard Rashke, excellent reporting on the killing of Karen Silkwood. Where is this? Killing of Karen Silkwood. The story behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case. You can find that on Amazon. It'll be up in the Opperman Report bookstore as well. We'll be back with more of Richard Rashke right after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Almightygold.com. Would you like to start investing in gold? But you can't afford to buy a whole ounce of gold, or certainly can't buy a bar of gold. With almightygold.com, you can invest in gold in these carat bars as little as of 1/10 of a gram of gold. So you can start investing tonight for as little as $6, $8. You can put your money in a product that's going to increase in value, not to be wasted on the trivial things we spend our money on every day. You can buy these carat bars. They're embedded into a credit card-sized plastic card. There's a watermark on it. There's a security strip on it, and it's all authenticated. You don't want to have them all sent to you at once. You can have them stored in their global savings vault for secure and safekeeping. They ship it to you when it reaches $1,000. When you have $1,000 in savings and you put it aside for a rainy day, for an emergency, you can barter with these little, guaranteed amounts of gold here in this little card. They also have a cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. And if you want to get into the gold business, become an affiliate of almightygold.com, contact us at almightygold.com. That's their email address. Contact us at almightygold.com, and they can put you in the gold business. Gold. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're speaking today with Richard Rashke. He's an author, a teacher, a playwright. He's written this book, The Killing of Karen Silkwood, the story behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case. So, Mr. Rashke, you were telling us about your source, Echo, who gave you information on what happened to this missing plutonium.
Yes. Well, I can't speak about the missing plutonium from other plants.
Okay.
Because it was an ongoing program to give plutonium to our friends who would help protect America and keep us safe. I know exactly what happened at the Cimarron plant, Kerr-McGee's plant in rural Oklahoma. It left the plant by car. Now, please understand, you think it's difficult to smuggle plutonium? Guess again. All you need to do is go to the grocery store, buy a roll of tinfoil, and put the plutonium in the tinfoil and roll it up, because the beta rays, the dangerous rays, shooting out of plutonium, like out of a BB gun or a shotgun, does not penetrate lead. So you could do it that way, but the proper way of doing it is get a lead-lined container, very small, something easy you put in your pocket. Put the plutonium inside, and then take some tape and seal it, and put it in your pocket, and walk through the monitor, and you'll walk right out the plant, as simple as that.
Gotcha.
So it went from by car, it went to Oklahoma City at a military air base. It was put on an airplane, and it was flown to a Gulf city in Alabama, where we have a military air base. And from there, it was put on ships and to be distributed to our allies. Who were the people? What nations got Kerr-McGee's nuclear, it's plutonium? According to ECHO, and of course, when you hear it, you'll understand that it's probably true. It went to Israel. It went to Brazil. It went to South Africa. And irony of all ironies, it went to Iran.
I was gonna guess I read.
At that time, Iran was under the thumb of a dictator, the Shah of Iran, who was a great supporter of America. And at that time, almost like today, the State Department and the CIA and the intelligence community loved dictators because dictators brought stability. And dictators wouldn't mind us doing black bag jobs because they do the same thing. So we wouldn't be questioned. So here we are today, fighting Iran's nuclear program. And we're the ones that gave them the plutonium to begin with. So I think that's funny. Anyway, that's where the stuff went. Why South Africa? Well, it's my understanding, but I can't totally confirm it, that Israel wanted to, whenever Israel wanted to test something, it couldn't do it in the region because it would give away the fact that it not only has a nuclear program, but it has nuclear weapons, and what kind of weapons. So it's my understanding that Israel used South Africa and was able to test its weapons over the ocean. And it would look like South Africa was doing it. Now, that may not be correct, but that's my understanding to date. It's not a significant point. So that's what happened to the plutonium from Kerr-McGee over a 2-year period. Now, Ed, I think we need to talk about her death.
Yes.
That's very important because a lot of these pieces will fall into place. Now, when she came back from the AEC in September of the year she was killed in November, she came back from Washington in September. Kerr-McGee and the AEC knew well in advance that she was going there. They had spies in the Union, and the spies in the Union would come and report to plant managers what's being planned, what's being said, what the schedule looks like. So when she came back, they had already tapped her telephone. And so she was under various kinds of surveillance. They even hired a spy to go into her apartment, become friends with her boyfriend, and her roommate, sit around and drink beer, smoke pot, and listen to music. And the spy would recount anything negative Silkwood may have said about plutonium and about the plant, anything useful. Well, her phone was tapped, and one day she called a fellow lab worker and said, "Oh my God," she said, "I just learned today that 40 pounds of plutonium was missing." She didn't say 40 pounds. She gave it in terms of grams. the number of grams or kilos plus grams. It's very specific. And the fact that she was very specific means she wasn't guessing, that she actually saw the inventory report showing a minus. Well, her phone was tapped. And whoever tapped the phone probably shared the information with those interested parties, including the CIA, was responsible for the plutonium in that plant, and because it was government-owned plutonium, they knew that she knew that 40 pounds of plutonium was missing. Now, they also knew that she was going to report to the New York Times. They knew she was going to report on health and safety, and they said, ho-hum, who cares? And she was going to talk about defects in fuel rods, too bad, but nothing critical. But that she would give the New York Times copies of inventory reports of missing plutonium, which would raise a simple question. If you got plutonium missing in Crescent, Oklahoma, what about Tennessee? What about plants in Colorado, Rocky Flats, Oakwood, Tennessee? What about all these places? Did they have missing plutonium too? So the night that, as soon as she got back, without her realizing it, somebody was spiking her urine samples, and in some cases, her fecal samples. Now, when you are contaminated by plutonium, you go in and you see the health physicists at the plant, and they do some tests. They do a nasal smear, which indicates how much plutonium you have breathed into your system, and they have numbers. She had been contaminated before she went to the AEC in Washington, and the contamination nasal was very high. She also had skin contamination, which was very, very high. So when she came back, she had to routinely give fecal and urine samples. And somebody was spiking her jar, putting a little plutonium in there. And hopefully she would hear about it. And hopefully she would get very scared. Now, I can't tell you why they were doing it. I can only surmise that they wanted to get rid of her because she was a big mouth, she was dangerous, she was a thorn in the side. In essence, she was like the movie, The Woman Who Knew Too Much. And so the best thing they could do, the easiest would be to frighten her to the point where she would quit. Gone is the threat. And nobody would be blamed for anything.
Richard, what about offering her money? Hey, here's $50,000. Get out of town tonight.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
So they monitored her, and they knew that on on the 13th of November in the evening, she was going to meet with David Burnham of the New York Times. He was famous because he did the expose on Serpico, the cop that went underground, eventually became a movie with Al Pacino. And he was famous, and he said, I'd love to look into this. I'm interested in this nuclear stuff. And he was waiting for her at the Northwest Holiday Inn in Oklahoma City. So she worked on union negotiations for a new contract all day, and at 5:30, she went to the local Hub Cafe in Crescent. I visited it, saw the room where she was at, got a lay of the land, as we say, and the purpose of the meeting was for the union leader, Jerry Brewer, to give a report to the union members of how the negotiations were going with Kerr-McGee on health and safety. And he had to say, we're not getting anywhere. Now, while she was sitting there, it's very important that two eyewitnesses, and I must say they were friends, were sitting next to her at the table. And under oath, they were deposed or testified under oath that, one, she did not fall asleep during the meeting. She was not nodding during the meeting. She looked tired. She looked stressed out. But her voice was good, and her voice was firm. At one point during a break, she got up and she called her boyfriend, Drew Stevens, to remind him to make sure that he pick up David Burnham at the Oklahoma City airport, take him to the Holiday Inn. And when the union meeting was over, she had a stack of papers on the desk. And she pointed to the stack, and she started to cry because she was filled with plutonium. And she was told that by the AEC, oh, don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry about. You're going to have babies later on. Don't worry about it. They'll be normal. And it was the usual kind of cover-up because the contamination was incredibly serious. So serious that the AEC sent her all the way to Los Alamos, New Mexico, to the most sensitive body counter in the world. And they monitored how much plutonium she had in her stomach, in her bones, in her liver, every other place. The news was not good, but they told her, don't worry anyway. Now, she pointed to this stack of papers and said to her two friends, Alma Hall and Jean Young, I don't know who would do that to someone like me, contaminate her deliberately, but I'm going to get them, she said, and the proof is right here. She pointed to a pile of documents. I have to say this because later on there was a denial that it ever had any. So Jean Young testified under oath that Silkwood had a stack of cardboardy kind of things that look like standard photographs. And she had a thick manila legal-size folder that was filled with papers. And then she had an orange-brown spiral notebook. And when she left, she picked up these documents. She walked outside, put them on the front seat of her Honda Civic, and left for Oklahoma City. It wasn't raining, and it was a November night, so it wasn't freezing or anything, and it was just a light wind. And 7.3 miles later, she was dead in a ditch. So, what happened? Well, I'll give you the conclusion later on. We'll give you the details. A truck driver saw her coming the other direction, saw her along the side of the road in a little gully there. She hit a cement wing wall. By that I mean there was a little creek that ran under the highway, and the wing wall served as a little funnel to keep the water flowing through. And she smashed into it and died on impact. So they called in a highway patrol. And a highway patrolman who has been working only for 6 months, so he's a rookie, by the name of Rick Fagan, got his flashlight and went down into the ditch, looked in the car, and he saw a woman, apparently dead, head kind of forward against the steering wheel and the windshield. Front was all smashed in. And then he said, and this is very important, that there are all kinds of documents that kind of fell out of the car on impact. And these documents had Kerr-McGee on them, or KM, or Kerr-McGee signia of some sort. He noted that. He picked them all up, put them back in the car. Then he waited for then he walked on the highway in the middle of the road with a flashlight, looking for any debris, like broken glass, like pieces of fender, anything that would indicate that she was rear-ended. He saw nothing. Then he went to the shoulder, and he could see the Honda tracks in the soft soil on the shoulder. And he noted that the car entered at a 45-degree angle. So then he went back on the highway looking for skid marks or rubber or anything that would indicate where did she start to cross the road? He saw some. They were at a secondary road, a dirt road that went back into the fields. It was an oil road. It's where the tankers went in to collect the oil because there were pumps all over the place back there. And he saw them, but none of these smudges had anything to do with a 45-degree angle, so he dismissed them. Then, later that night, he followed the car as they pulled it out, and they took it to a Ford dealership, and they parked it there, and it was to be secured because it was evidence. So as a cop, he could look around. He went in, he looked at the car, didn't see any really huge dents of any kind, superficial. He looked inside the car, saw even more Kerr-McGee documents. He saw a bottle of Bloody Mary mix. He took a sample and sent it to a police lab, suspecting that it was real Bloody Mary and alcohol had been mixed in it. And then he got on the phone and he woke up, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and he woke up Roy King, who was a manager at Kerr-McGee and had something to do with documents. And he said to Roy King, "Come by Sebring's Ford tomorrow morning. I'll be there waiting for you, and I will allow you, under my supervision, to take all of the Kerr-McGee documents and bring them back. They're yours." Well, during the night, sometime after 10, 3 or 4 men dressed in moon suits came to Sebring's garage under the pretext of examining it for radiation. I don't know. Nobody knows whether they posed as AEC men, Kerr-McGee men, or CIA. Nobody knows. But they had the moon suits, and Sebring bought the package, let them in, and they cleaned up every single document and took them. So from that day forward, the FBI, Kerr-McGee, everyone argued that Karen Silkwood had no documents that night. And if she was contaminated, she was crazy enough to contaminate herself because she couldn't prove to the Union what she was saying. She failed in her undercover mission. She had no documents and was ashamed. They took that tack. Now, here's what really happened. Silkwood had her documents stored in 2 places. The first place was in a false ceiling in her closet. And after they found out her apartment was contaminated.
Okay, Mr. Reschke, can we have you come back and give us like another half hour after this? I think we can. Thank you so much. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get Richard Reschke to come back and finish up this entire story because we need like another half hour to finish up this story. So what we'll do is have him come back. So we were just talking to Richard Reschke. The book is The Killing of Karen Silkwood. Behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case, the story behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case. Fascinating stuff. And it sounds like there's a CIA connection to the actual murder here. So we'll be right back with more of Richard Reschke after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Check out cartking.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, cartking.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy.
For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. AlmightyGold.com. Would you like to start investing in gold? But you can't afford to buy a whole ounce of gold, or certainly can't buy a bar of gold. With AlmightyGold.com, you can invest in gold in these carat bars as little as of 1/10 of a gram of gold. So you can start investing tonight for as little as $6, $8. You can put your money in a product that's going to increase in value, not to be wasted on the trivial things we spend our money on every day. You can buy these carat bars. They're embedded into a credit card-sized plastic card. There's a watermark on it. There's a security strip on it, and it's all authenticated. You don't want to have them all sent to you at once. You can have them stored in their global savings vault for secure and safekeeping. They ship it to you when it reaches $1,000. When you have $1,000 in savings and you put it aside for a rainy day, for an emergency, you can barter with these little, guaranteed amounts of gold here in this little card. They also have a cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. And if you want to get into the gold business, become an affiliate of AlmightyGold.com, contact us at AlmightyGold.com. That's their email address. Contact us at AlmightyGold.com. And they can put you in the gold business. Gold. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Richard Rashke. We're going to have him come back for about another half hour or so. It may wind up in the member section. I'm not sure what's going to happen to it, or if we could find something to add to the 30 minutes at the end of that show. If you enjoyed today's show, please go to OppermanReport.com and sign up with our member section. That's where we have additional shows. There's additional 200-plus shows in there. There's videos, there's documents, there's court documents, all kinds of images in there at Almighty Gold, at OppermanReport.com. Now, if you want to, by the way, you can sign up there. It's only $6 a month, $6. If we had a couple of hundred people just sign up tonight, I know there's thousands of people listening to the show tonight, hundreds of thousands of people, and if you just had 100 people sign up, $6 a month, man, we'd be fine. We'd have no complaints, no expenses here. We could cover the show month after month after month. We've had a little another problem here. YouTube has demonetized the Opperman Report YouTube channel. If you listen on YouTube, you're not even hearing this show because we're not going to put up any more shows on YouTube. I'm done. I can't keep fighting YouTube. I just can't keep doing it. It's with more aggravation than it's worth. What we'll be doing from today forward is you'll see the title of the show that we just did and a little description and a link to where you can go. Okay, I'll describe the show to you and I'll tell you where you can go listen to it. You can listen to it on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, many, many places. We don't need YouTube. I'm sick of it. And it's just way too much hassle every month and policing the comments every Saturday morning and Sunday morning. It's just way too much time and effort. And harassment on there and stalking me, people. It's just way too much nonsense. And now we're not making a dime over there. Now I'm going to give YouTube my content, build up another company with my content. No way. Not me, man. So unfortunately, no more YouTube. Okay, you'll see the title of the show, the description of the show, and a link to where you can go listen to the show. But you won't be able to listen to it on YouTube. Now today's show with Richard Rashke, we're going to be doing another half hour. I'm not sure if this is going to play on the air on KYAH. Or on iHeart or iTunes or People's Internet Radio, all the stations, IPM Nation, all the stations we're on, or if it's just going to play in the member section. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I haven't recorded it yet, so I can't tell you. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, Richard Rashke. The book is The Killing of Karen Silkwood, the story behind the Kerr-McGee plutonium case. And what you've heard here tonight is information you haven't heard anywhere else before. So this is good stuff. Thank you so much, Richard Rashke.